Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to yet another episode of the Final Cut Presents Directors Club podcast. You can tell Nathan's not here, but his presence still remains because I only started saying that when he started saying that. So, unfortunately, the man of 1,000 voices, the discount Mark Hamill, the man who wishes he was Tara Strong, is not here, I'm afraid. But, however, we do have someone better. We have the all-knowing comic book encyclopedia who was defeated by two men who barely know the difference between Scooby-Doo and Ruby-Roo. Michael Fraser.
Well, then I guess you're going to carry us through any comic book stuff needed today, so...
Yeah, but to be fair, you are the comic book encyclopedia. Just because you're lost to us doesn't mean we're better than you. Well, there is going to be a bit of movie news, but I'm going to start off with the fact that somehow Chris Evans has been named the sexiest man alive. Not quite sure how that's happened, mind you. Chris Hemsworth actually went on, I think it was either Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, and to discuss it, he said Chris Hemsworth about he and his Marvel co-stars all reacted and roasted Chris Evans' new title in the group text chain. I've actually got it here. It says, we have an Avengers text chain. Downey said he's been arrested. I said it was a beautiful mugshot. And then Jeremy Renner said a series of things which we won't repeat. It's ever so lovely, isn't it?
As always.
Yeah. Rockstar apparently turned down an Eminem-led GTA film.
Really?
Yeah. The co-founders of Grand Theft Auto were once pitched a GTA movie that could have starred Eminem and Fraser. This is what could have made it even greater. Directed by the late, great Tony Scott.
Oh, wow. It's funny because Eminem's in a Punisher comic, so you think he would have been down for this kind of stuff.
But apparently the concept was passed regardless. Well, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter if it was passed on by Eminem, Tony, or by the actual co-founders of the GTA. But either way, I think that was a great opportunity that they've missed.
Yeah, that one would have been really good.
Yeah, that's YouTube. I've actually got more about it here. As Rockstar apparently turned down the chances just had to make a GTA movie starring Eminem in the title. Game industry veteran Kirk Ewing claims to be friends with both Sam and Dan Houser, the creators of GTA. And on an episode of BBC podcast, Bugsy Malone's Grandest Game, Ewing claims that a Hollywood agent approached him with a potential deal, but Sam Houser shot it down. Hold on, let me just try and find where it starts. That's it, really. It's supposed to be two things, but it's gone out somewhere. Moving on. There's been a new Mario trailer. I'm still not impressed by Chris Pratt's, whatever it is. John Leguizamo, who played Luigi in the shittier version of Super Mario Bros., recently told IndieWire that the casting in the upcoming Mario movie was backwards because his role as Luigi in the 1993 film was a breakthrough for Latin actors. Well, no offense, but Charlie Day hasn't really made a breakthrough as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that movie was really bad, even from the standards of back in the day for those kind of movies. It's probably still the worst video game movie.
I'm sure you'll agree with me on this, Face. The only good thing about that movie was Yoshi.
Yeah.
That's probably the only good thing about that movie. And even Dennis Hopper, the legendary movie actor who literally had villain written all over his face, even he couldn't save the movie.
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino confirms his next project is an 8-episode limited series. Film director shared news of the project while promoting his new book, Cinema Speculation, at a New York event hosted by Elvis Mitchell. Sadly, Tarantino didn't give much detail on the plot or production details around the project. Is it weird, Quentin Tarantino doing a TV series and not a movie?
For what?
Is it weird that Quentin Tarantino is going to do a TV series for a project and not a movie?
Well, apparently Tarantino's plan was to do 8 films and then basically go off in the sunset, so I could see why he's doing TV now.
Yeah, the only thing he needs to do is radio, but he's done all 3. Actually, tell a lie, he needs to do movie, TV, theatre, radio. Well, I suppose you could actually say that he could actually do a podcast series. It's not as if that's quite alien to everyone, which it's not. Here's something for you. Silk Spider Society live-action TV series heads to Prime Video with Spider-Verse team. Angela Kang, who served as showrunner on The Walking Dead, so big respect there, will head up a live-action TV series, Silk Spider Society, which also sees Spider-Verse alumni Phil Lord, Chris Miller, and Amy Pascal as executive producers.
Oh, that should be interesting.
It should be, because Phil Lord and Chris Miller did Into the Spider-Verse, and the Lego Movie as well, I believe. So it's not as if they don't really know their stuff, which they do. So that'll be quite interesting. Amy Adams says she will return as Lois Lane in the new Superman films. Amy Adams has expressed excitement at Henry Cavill's return to Superman, but said she hasn't yet been approached by the studio to reprise her role as Lois Lane. Please go back after her. She's probably the greatest Lois there is. James Wan and James Bloom, two of the biggest heavyweights as far as horror goes, are in the process of merging their production companies. The New York Times outlined the merger, saying Wan and Bloom plan to build a horror film factory if the merger is complete. Fraser, I hate to say this, but is this the horror movie version of Disney buying out 20th Century Fox?
I'm pretty sure it would be.
Can you just imagine how epic that production company would be? You have a man who literally built his reputation on Saw, and we have another guy who literally has what looks like his fingers in just about every single horror movie that's been made in the last 5, 6, 10 years. There's nothing to say they can't do this.
Yeah, as long as they do everything right.
Yeah, just no more Sinister, because I absolutely hate Sinister. It's an absolute waste of time. A lot of people may know this or may not know this. Chris Hemsworth has taken a break from acting following Alzheimer's revelation. Chris Hemsworth learned during an episode of his National Geographic show Limitless, which I don't want to watch because I've already seen some. I've read the outline of some of the things he has to do, and all I'm going to say is his balls are bigger than just about everybody's. That he possesses 2 copies of the APO4 gene, one from both parents, which leads to greatly increased chance for developing Alzheimer's. In response, he says, "I'm going home and I'm going to have a good chunk of time off and just simplify. Be with the kids, be with my wife," which I totally understand. How would you feel if you just literally went at it and then found out, oh shit? It's not. I will say one thing, it'll probably have been quite a shock for him. But at the same time, would you not want to do that?
I feel like if there's a bad kind of shock, maybe not.
But the appeal of, oh God, I'm going to be developing Alzheimer's soon. Yeah, right. Let me go and spend some time with my family. Who doesn't want to do that? A bit of news at Disney. Sorry, carry on, mate.
Well, also, here's the problem, because, like, a lot of people are acting weird. Like, I understand why he wants to be off of his family and everything. This might also mark the very end of him playing Thor.
Yeah.
So, and I think at this time, like, people should be really respected, because, at the end of the day, I know people are going to want more Thor and for him to do more things, but after everything he's given everyone, like, people should, if he chooses to step away before things get too bad, everyone should really respect it.
I mean, no offense, but there's always going to be a God of Thunder. It doesn't necessarily have to be Thor. And I'm assuming, since you are a comic book encyclopedia, there have been other Thors aside from Jane Foster and him.
Yeah, there's a few different Thors, and there are multiple Thors throughout the multiverse as well. So there will always be a Thor in some way.
Yeah. Bob Chapek has quit as Disney CEO. Bob Iger has returned. I have seen bits and bobs about that, and I believe one of the reasons, don't quote me on this, but this is what I've read. One of the reasons is Bob Chapek's very shit handling of Scarlett Johansson and Black Widow. Do you remember when Black Widow wasn't going to be in cinemas? It was going to be released on Disney Plus as well. For however much extra it was, I'll say £20, let's say, and about I can't remember how much exactly, but a fair chunk was actually made on Disney Plus itself, and basically Scarlett sued Disney for well, I'm not quite sure. I can't remember exactly what it would be, but obviously she would miss out on the financial rewards, considering she was actually producer on that. Everyone has a certain amount that they're given. I mean, Downey Jr. got paid 50 million. Was it 50 million pound? I think it was, for Avengers Endgame. So she missed out on there, and Bob Chapek. This is what I've heard, so don't quote me on it. Bob Chapek's handling of it has been not one of the, I'll say one of the factors, but obviously there has been more as well, aside from that. But I'm going to give a Bob's big stuff. But apparently Bob Iger had the respect of everyone, whereas I think Bob Chapek took over and literally was like, right, I'm going to have my crew in, we're going to do it my way. The only problem is, and I believe from what I also read, that Disney were kind of like how HBO, Warner Brothers are at the minute. They've lost quite a bit of money, so I think Bob Iger is on damage control as well. But then again, it's not as if Disney Plus isn't churning out their programming at the minute. I mean, to be honest with you, it feels like there's a new MCU project or a new Star Wars project. I mean, just recently we've had She-Hulk and Andor come out at the same time. Hocus Pocus 2's been out recently. Obviously, the Kardashians, which me and the producer watch, is on E. So that's instantly going to get fans of the Kardashians straight on, which is in there. Hundreds, if not hundreds of millions. So anyway, less about Disney. Just going to give an next swap. Apparently, since Elon Musk's buyout of Twitter, apparently a very derogatory term, which I won't be naming, has gone up 500%. And not only that, Twitter users have uploaded Hackers, The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift, Need for Speed, and more movies to the social platform, and they've gone unblocked while copyright enforcement appears to be unaccounted for. So congratulations, Elon Musk, you have already let carnage go by. Should it be called Twitter, or should it be called the Social Purge? I'm not quite sure, Fraser. What do you think?
Probably Social Purge.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe someone should say that to Elon Musk and just say, right, Twitter, right, we are officially renaming Twitter the Social Purge, because that's what it feels like. There's no order to this anarchy. It's just anarchy being let loose. And no offense, but it can't be any worse than how Kanye West has been at the moment. We'll not even go that.
Quentin Tarantino, a different problem.
Yeah, let's just not go there. Quentin Tarantino says current film era is one of the worst in history. In the recent podcast appearance, Quentin Tarantino said, along with the 50s and 1980s, the current era of cinema is one of the worst in history. I don't think that's... 1980s had a lot of great movies, so I'm not quite sure what he's basing on the 1980s being the worst ever. I always used to think that some of the greatest movies ever made were in the 80s.
That pretty much was the action hero boom. But the problem is with a lot of the films today, it's just a lot of the same rehash. It's a bunch of gangster movies. It's a bunch of remakes of remade films.
Yeah.
Hollywood isn't taking too much risks anymore outside of like superhero films.
Which I think Tarantino and Scorsese aren't a big fan of.
Yeah, but they make the same film every single time.
Yeah. Remember the olden days when there used to be a brand new Ridley Scott movie every couple of years?
Yeah. And then horror also has been taking a major backseat, or they'll just remake films instead of coming up with new iconic characters and everything.
Are we going to get into our Evil Dead debate again?
No, but that one's different, though. I gotta say, that one's different, though, in a lot of ways. Because at least they're taking that, and then they're going to build off it. We have, like, the next Evil Dead movie that's coming with much different setting, cast, and everything. But, like, they're not... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you said the 1980s is one of the worst, but the 1980s gave us Aliens, it gave us Terminator. This was 1991. I'm just trying to figure what else. It was Top Gun, obviously. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Basically, I think some of the greatest movies were made in the 1980s, along with the music. I would actually say that as far as eras go, I would actually say the 70s weren't too bad. I would actually say the 20, aside from a few movies, probably the 2010s and maybe nowadays is probably one of the worst, because I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but there is a lot of superhero movies nowadays, whereas in the olden days, when there used to be more choice. Because you used to have we used to have an alien movie every 8 years or so. It used to feel like an event used to come out. It was almost like, oh God, it feels like we're waiting for God to come out. No, we're not. Terminator, to be fair, it peaked at T2. It was never going to go any better than that, which was in the 90s. So I actually kind of think the 1990s was also a really bad time, because in the early 90s, I do remember this, the horror genre, particularly, I think it was like 1990 and 1991, was at a kind of a standstill. It was only because of Scream that there was still a horror era in the 1990s. If it wasn't for Scream, nobody would even know what horror came out in the 1990s. And then obviously Saw came out in the 2000s. But to be honest with you, I can say this for horror. I don't really think there has been a decent horror in the last couple of years. Evil Dead came out in 2011. That's probably been the best horror movie of any era since then. But aside from that, I know people who say Hereditary. I haven't seen Hereditary, but I have heard good things about it. Midsommar, I haven't seen it. I don't even know if it's a horror movie, because what horror movie lasts for 2 hours, 25 minutes, Mike?
Right.
So I will say one thing. I know I do say that horror is one of the worst eras now, but I will say that just because 2 movies have been quite good does not mean that is it. Doesn't mean that every horror is going to be great. I know there's some horror I've seen where I'm like, oh my God. I'm going to get a headache anyway, so let's move on, mate. Fast 10's budget has reportedly ballooned out of control. The budget for the next Fast film, the last Fast film, which you'll be pleased to know, has reportedly soared to $340 million. According to this is $140 million over that of the previous film, Fast 9. Well, it just depends. Are they planning to go any further? Can you go any worse than Space, to be honest? Or is there something that we don't know? Not to mention Jason Momoa's joined, so that's probably a large chunk of that. Can you imagine if Robert Downey Jr. joined? That would be a $140 million budget.
There was a joke going around that they were going to cross over with like the Transformers.
Another Quentin Tarantino one, and I will disagree with him on that, because this movie I have seen, I don't really rate it. It says, Quentin Tarantino has been responsible for some of the most iconic classic films in Hollywood. Variety asked the director what he thought of his filmography and which stands out the most to him. He says, for years, people used to ask me stuff like that, and I would say something like, oh, for all my children, I really do think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is my best movie. The problem is I've watched it. That is actually the movie that ended, that literally made me want to go, do you know what? I don't want to do movie reviewing anymore, because after about 5 days after I watched it, I still couldn't put a review together for it. I was looking, I just kept thinking, what can I write about this? Because I don't like it, but I don't hate it either. Margot Robbie's completely and utterly wasted. Not to mention the fact that not everyone's happy about the depiction of Bruce Lee in that. So I'm not going to say that is one of his worst, but come on. Quentin Tarantino's done better than that. He's definitely done a lot better. Pulp Fiction, legendary. Reservoir Dogs, legendary. Kill Bill, 2.5 hours, in fact, nearly 3 hours worth of samurai chopping bits off. How can you not love that? Django Unchained, very 1900s. It's a bit hard to follow, particularly if you aren't used to that sort of thing. And I kind of don't like that sort of era for that reason. But I would probably say that Pulp Fiction or Kill Bill is one of his best, not Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But everyone's allowed their different opinions, aren't they? Marvel's Blade hires Lovecraft Country director in shift to darker and grittier take on MCU. Yann Demange, known for directing the pilot of HBO's Lovecraft Country, will helm the MCU's Blade movie starring Mahershala Ali. The original director Basim Tawek exited the project in September. No, we've already been that one. Indiana Harrison Ford was DH for the opening image of Indiana Jones. That trailer recently dropped, and if I'm being honest, I don't know if you've seen it, Fraser, but there's a lot of de-aging Harrison Ford in that. There generally is. I'm actually quite shocked about how much de-aging there was.
Honestly, the trailer is really good. Like, he hasn't lost a step in Indiana Jones. It kind of feels a bit like The Last Crusade, which is kind of nice. But like in the way of like Indy feels like at this point of his life, like his adventuring days are over and he gets pulled back into the adventure.
Yeah. You do know who's directing Indy 5, don't you?
No, I have no idea, actually.
James Mangold.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know James Mangold's name, I believe James Mangold directed The Wolverine. I'm pretty sure he did Logan as well. Pretty sure he did.
The funny thing is, there's this joke going around right now that Harrison Ford will DH himself to keep Chris Pratt away from playing any of his roles.
Probably true. Well, put it this way, we don't need a Chris Pratt. I'm just happy with a Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Director James Cameron has told GQ that he has a rich dream life and that several of his movies, including Avatar, The Terminator, and Aliens, have been influenced by them. He says the ideas for Avatar came to James Cameron and says, I have my own private streaming service that's better than any of that shit out there anyone's ever had for free. Not quite sure what that's got to do with that, so that's a bit of a shoddy one on IGN's on front. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse will have 6 different animated styles. It will feature 6 different animation styles to reflect the 6 different realities featured in the film, including. Now, this is where your brain will probably go into overload. Earth 5101, 2099, which you already know, and I'm assuming it's 56, according to producer Phil Lord, who shared an update on the film with Empire magazine. This is the point where you educate somebody who doesn't know Spider-Man that much.
I don't read Empire magazine, so.
No. It's 6 different realities featured in the film, including Earth 5101, 2099, and 56.
Yeah, 2099 is the future where Miguel O'Hara's from.
Yeah. And what do you know what 5101 is? The silence is obviously you do not, so you're going to go and quickly have a look at what it is.
Yeah, because honestly, a lot of. Oh, okay. It's I forgot about the Spider-Man, but he has popped up at one point. It's the Spider-Man of India. I just didn't know like the number of his Earth because there's a lot of the times where you'll get like flashes of Spider-Man from stuff. Yeah. I know he's gonna be in the film, but I didn't know what his Earth sector was.
Here's a funny one that came across me a while ago. Bruce Almighty almost had a 3rd movie in its franchise called Brucifer, where Jim Carrey's character took on the powers of Satan to resurrect an undead Jennifer Aniston. Well, why not? I think that would have been quite good.
Yeah, but some moviegoers are just super sensitive about like certain things. You get like all the moms against like everything, and remember they thought D&D was like satanic and Kiss and Twisted Sisters.
Speaking of which, James Cameron's GQ magazine. Apparently, Leonardo DiCaprio almost didn't get the iconic role of Jack Dawson. Leo's Titanic audition process wasn't smooth sailing, according to director James Cameron, as he recorded in the interview how Leo originally refused to read for the part opposite Kate Winslet during the screen test. James has been quoted saying, he didn't know he was going to test. He thought it was another meeting to meet Kate, and he said, you mean I'm reading? I said, yeah. He said, oh, I don't read. I shook his hand and said, thanks for coming. So I don't know what he did in that 2 minutes or so, but he must have made an impression because he got the part.
Well, that and it'd be a Jack Dawson thing to do. Like he's been rebellious the entire film, and you go in there and you tell a guy like, "Yeah, I'm not going to do this."
Yeah. Bit of movie news, but also a bit of gaming news. Christopher Judge, who voices Kratos in God of War and the new released God of War Ragnarok, has happily said that He responded to a fan on Twitter who said he's the right choice to play Kratos in the live-action TV show, and Chris Judd said he co-signed on the idea. But to be fair, he's got the physique to play Kratos. He literally has a voice suitable for Kratos. How is this not a great idea, Fraser?
Honestly, I'd be more concerned about the budget constraints and everything. If they're going to go practical, or are they going to do more CGI?
I know this isn't really movie news, but this is kind of worrying. Tech giant Apple expressed interest in buying Manchester United, but no offense, Manchester United is so 1990. We don't really want to see Man United anymore. By the way, here's some very good legal news. A man who was fired wins legal right to be boring at work after not taking part in after-work drinks. Yes, you did read that right. Consulting firm Cubic Partners dismissed an employee, I've lost it a minute, whose full name has not been disclosed, for being insufficiently professional because he didn't get involved in team-building activities with colleagues. Said person took the case to an industrial tribunal, and then the appeal was heard in court last month, which ended up siding with him, ruling that company was wrong to sack him on the grounds that he did not get involved in the fun. The court said it led frequently to excessive alcoholism encouraged by colleagues who made available very large quantities of alcohol, and practices pushed by colleagues involving promiscuity, bullying, and incitement to various excesses. The court also ruled that Mr. T could not be blamed for his lack of integration in the fun environment. It based this also on the fact that, most other things, this meant excessive drinking at weekends. And I'm a bit disappointed with the payout phrase. It ordered them to pay out £2,574 to the former employee. Now, that is a bit insulting.
That's kind of stupid. So they don't want to drink and go out and do stuff. But there's a lot of people who are just antisocial in public settings.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not the biggest go-outer. It's like if people say to me, do you want to go and get slaughtered out of town? I'm like, nah. I prefer my insides as one, and I don't really want to end up doing something I regret. But at the same time, I'll happily go out. It's just a case of I'm not going out to get slaughtered, because that's not my thing. It's not. I don't think it's Nathan's thing. It's definitely not your thing. Not to mention the fact that you've got a family as well.
Yeah, and some people just don't have the extra expenses to go and do stuff.
Yeah. Oh, very last bit of news, phrase. By the way, do you have Monopoly in your house?
No.
Good. May I suggest you keep it that way? Man accused of shooting at his family after game of Monopoly went horribly wrong. I'll let that sink in for a minute. Right, it's sunken enough. The legendary board game has been known over the years to spark the odd familial argument or two. However, one Monopoly game in Oklahoma took a twist for the terrifying. The Tulsa Police Department said John Armstrong and his stepfather got into an argument while playing the game, and things escalated from there. After knocking over the Monopoly board and turning over furniture, another family member told Armstrong and his stepfather to take the fight outside, which they did. However, Armstrong has been accused of pulling out a pistol and chasing his stepdad and stepsister at gunpoint down the street. Stepsister called police and claimed one shot was fired at her during the confrontation, and Armstrong was arrested. He has since been charged with assault with a deadly weapon. Authorities say he admitted to firing one shot at the ground. Apparently, the Tulsa Police Department reportedly wrote on Facebook, Armstrong won't be able to use the get-out-of-jail-free card for this one.
That's so dumb.
Well, some people, to be honest with you, this is why I prefer playing it on a PlayStation. You don't have any of this cheating malarkey. I was saying that I still don't know why the producer prefers board games. Have you ever noticed that the one common denominator is if you play something like, say, Monopoly, which you can play on something like a PlayStation, Xbox, or PC, you can't blame your significant other half. You can blame the hardware.
I just find that so stupid.
It is. It really is. Don't get me wrong. You're going to be upset because you've lost at Monopoly. But at the same time, it's a game. It's not as if it's like, oh, no, I've lost a game of Monopoly. I have to do something I don't want to do. So I did have about 150 bits of news, but unfortunately that would take too long, and I don't have all night, and Fraser doesn't have all morning. So the discussion now is James Gunn is the new co-CEO Yes, I did have to get that out all in one, and yes, it was a bit painful. Yes, he is now the co-CEO of DT Studios, which will basically sort out everything as far as film goes, animation, I believe video games as well, Phrase, because I believe I've heard the saying that everything as far as DC goes will be interlinked with everything going forward. So the animation will have a link to the games, other games will have a link to the film to animation, so on and so forth. James Gunn has actually teased his plans for DC with an iconic comic book image, which is, if I remember this correctly, Fraser, I believe that is Kingdom Come series.
Yep. It's Kingdom Come.
Now, for those, I do know a bit of Kingdom Come, but I don't know as obviously as much as you. So, for the benefit of those not in the know-how, what is Kingdom Come?
Okay, in the world of Kingdom Come, Superman steps away from the world after a new hero that shows up called Magog gains the favor of the public. It takes Joker ends up going to Daily Planet and slaughtering Lois Lane and all them and everyone that Clark knows that works there. And Superman still refuses to kill the Joker, so Magog does it. Then he tries publicly challenging Superman to a fight and everything, which Superman refuses. So he locks himself away in the Fortress of Solitude for multiple years as basically the world gets out of control without his guidance and him to inspire heroes. So you see more of like the younger generation of heroes. Batman very much wears the same suit that Kevin Conroy wore in the Batwoman episode. Dick Grayson becomes Red Robin. And you pretty much see like the huge instability that a Superman being away has caused among like everyone. You see wars happening. You see like that new hero they were praising, like the outcome of all the choices and decisions he made. You see the destruction of Smallville. It very much it becomes of when is being a hero goes too far. What is heroism? What is the real good and evil hero? Like when you have the best intentions, is it always the best intentions? It gets a little like religiously at times because there's a specter there, and there's a whole lot that's built into the book, and then there's also the sequel, The Kingdom. It's probably like one of the best written ones, and a lot of the art has been done where they very much like sketched actual people and everything. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty good book. If you can find it, I would recommend reading it. Just, yeah, the religious stuff might be a little too much for people in it.
Which I don't think James Gunn, in all his infinite wisdom, would put in it anyway.
Probably not. But if you want to read its sequel, The Kingdom, they cut out a whole lot of that stuff. But the art in it is amazing.
Because obviously, I was going to say, a bit of Kingdom Come was actually done in Crisis on Infinite Earths, because that's the Superman Brandon Routh played.
Yep, that in one of the articles, you actually see like the day that it happened and everything. One of the articles in his office, and the costume that he's wearing with the crest and everything is the same one that Superman wears during that story.
Mm-hmm. So it's not it's sort of been done before, but it hasn't really been done on such a massive scale. So there is a lot of questions, obviously, because we've got a lot of movies before then. I mean, we just have Black Adam, which I still haven't watched, but I want to. You can actually buy it or rent it, but with all due respect, I am not forking out £10 for a movie when I don't even know if it's any good or not. I mean, to be fair, if you're forking out for, like, say, I don't know, a $5 at cinema for a movie you had no idea if it's going to be any good, that's fair enough. But £20 is just £20 is just too much for it. Not to mention the fact that I'd give it a couple of months and it'll be free on whatever streaming service there is. Especially nowadays when something that comes out on, say, we'll say something Disney comes out, and then in about 45 days, it will be on Disney Plus free of charge. So with that being said, obviously, I've still got the Warner Brothers Discovery pee-off factor with HBO Max because I still can't get it. I won't get it for another 3 years, 3.5 years. So the question is, we do still have a lot of stuff. I mean, we've got The Flash, which, as far as we know, because there's been a lot that's happened, because Keaton apparently is no longer the Batman they're going to. Apparently it's Affleck, and Affleck has been cited on Jason Momoa's Instagram when he was on the set of Aquaman 2. So we know Affleck's going to be there. I don't know what's happening with Gal Gadot, but she's got Wonder Woman 3 coming up. Well, nothing about after that. I'm wondering if it'll be a case of she'll finish her trilogy and then everything will reset after Flashpoint. So if everything is resetting after Flashpoint, it's pretty obvious that Kingdom Come is where James Gunn wants it to go. Now, in your comic book encyclopedia opinion, could he have gone with something better than Kingdom Come?
Well, it depends which kind of incarnation you want of Superman. Like, I could see them doing a lot more of Injustice, a lot better than what the animated movie did. I could see them doing Kingdom Come. I could see them doing like DC's, I think it's called DC's 1 Million, where Superman has like his fortress basically within the Earth's sun and comes back to the Earth, and they bring like the multiple other versions into like this kind of like tournament thing for him. So there's a whole lot of big stories they can do for directions. I honestly would go with, I would do the Kingdom Come story. Then I would do its sequel, The Kingdom, where they tell his younger counterpart what happens to the world and everything on that day, where he swears that oath to prevent the events of Kingdom Come happening. Because when the day does happen, where the Daily Planet and everything's attacked, I feel like that'd be so much more interesting for him to try and stop that, especially if they incorporated the storyline where Superman's powers began the weekend, where he had solar radiation taken from him and everything, and having the solar attack, because he becomes much more vulnerable. So him battling the Joker would be a much more uphill battle.
Yeah, Joker's unhinged. I mean, even Batman's had trouble, as I'm sure. Do you know what? I was really hoping that Nathan would be here to say his usual jokery things, but unfortunately, we must digress. There's still a lot that we don't know, mate. Regardless of, we know where James Gunn wants it to go, but the question is, we've still got to get it there, because obviously, Dwayne Johnson has been campaigning like hell for Henry Cavill to come back, which, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Black Adam yet, he has. There's no word on whether Amy Adams is coming back. There's to be honest with you, they kind of made it a big mess because Batgirl was cancelled. Michael Keaton was supposed to be in that. The Flash has had significant rewrites, which again, Michael Keaton was supposed to be the Batman in it. No word on whether Sasha Calle's Supergirl is actually doing anything. It's kind of, James Gunn has really inherited a really big mess. And by the way, I will just mention his co-CEO, Peter Safran, I think his name is. He's the one who's actually doing, I think Peter Safran's doing the movie side and James Gunn is doing the, I'll say he's doing the, like, I'm trying to put it into like the easiest way possible. Peter Safran is managing the stuff behind the camera or in the office, and James Gunn is handling the movie side of everything. Apparently, James Gunn really uses his Twitter a lot and says and asks people for opinions on what they would like. Yeah. Which, let's face it, with Walter Hamada, you wouldn't have had that.
Definitely not.
They just wonder. To be honest with you, Phrase, the question I have is: I am a person who does not like to see things left in the gutter. If I haven't watched something and it's been left in the gutter, I tend not to go near it. To be honest with you, I have still not seen The Exorcist season 2, especially after what happened after I finished watching season 1. I don't want to go there. I do want to see Zack Snyder's Justice League trilogy finished, because then we can. But then again, isn't literally just Zack Snyder's Justice League literally nothing but not so much injustice, but it is kind of literally injustice, because obviously that's when Superman goes doolally, and Batman's the only one who can stop him. So, with that being said, I do hope we do get to finish Zack Snyder's Justice League trilogy you wanted, because I know a lot of Snyder fans want it. I want it. I'm going to assume that you want it as well.
I would like to see the end, even though he already spoiled what his plans and everything would be. I thought it would have been interesting if it turned out the whole time this was like the Ultraman universe, since that Superman goes bad and everything, and I'm pretty sure he's raised by the Luthors, and then we like go to the main DC universe where we meet Superman. I think that would have been interesting as well, but I would like to see him finish his work. He's really good with imagery and everything.
By the way, have you heard Robert Downey Jr. shaved his head?
Oh, no, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, he shaved his head, and apparently a lot of people are wanting him as Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
But to be fair, can you not think of a better person to be Lex Luthor?
I think he'd be fantastic, him or Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, we don't want Jesse Eisenberg. Don't get me wrong. Jesse Eisenberg, I do like. I just don't like him as Lex Luthor. Because don't you think Lex Luthor in Batman v Superman kind of reminds you of like a petulant child who basically whinges when he doesn't get his own way, whereas Lex Luthor the Lex Luthor that we know and love would have been. I'm just trying to think of how I can word this so I can actually word it, kiddie friendly. He would have basically gone the Lex Luthor we know and love. He would have said, "Oh well, we lost. I don't lose. I just simply give up and try another way." But no, Jesse Eisenberg's like, no, this will happen. But I actually wouldn't mind. I know we sort of saw, to be honest with you, I don't even know what the hell we saw in Batman v Superman. Is that the actual Doomsday, or is there another Doomsday in the DCU? Because I read somewhere that there was another Doomsday that wasn't the actual Doomsday. So I would actually like to see the Doomsday show up, and then sort of not so much have not like the animated movie there was, but sort of have something similar where when Henry Cavill's had enough, we have a Kara Zor-El to take over, so on and so forth. But the other thing is, I think whichever direction James Gunn wants to take it, he's going to have to think very hard about what the ages are, because Henry Cavill is over 40, Amy Adams is about 44, Ben Affleck is I believe over his 50s, Gal Gadot, even though I don't know how, is approaching 40, but she doesn't look it. Jason Momoa, I believe, is in his 40s. The only people who are really could be in this long term, I'll say at this point in time, would be Ezra Miller, but there's no guarantee he's doing it. Ray Fisher, I believe, is in his 20s, obviously. Still got a Green Lantern to fill. We've still got a Martian Manhunter. I know we sort of had it with Harry Lennox, but there's no guarantee that Martian Manhunter will stay. And we've got, obviously, everyone who was in the JLA in Black Adam, but we don't know exactly what's going on with that lot yet. I do know one thing. I do want a Shazam versus Black Adam, and I also want a Black Adam versus Superman.
Black Adam versus Superman would be really good.
Can you imagine how many people would literally not so much pre-order, but as soon as we said, as soon as somebody found out, there's Black Adam's fighting Superman in this, can you imagine the amount of pre-sales that would go on sale?
Oh, it'd be madness.
Yeah, it would literally be even worse than a Taylor Swift concert selling out in about 2 minutes. Speaking of which, did you hear about what happened with Taylor's posse when they were trying to buy her new tour? I'm going to assume that's a no then. Basically, the entire Ticketmaster system crashed, which is about par for the course with an artist who's very popular. As far as I remember, as far as I know, long story short, Ticketmaster's been investigated simply because they have no customer service. They can't deliver the service. I myself am much inclined to a Viagogo. By the way, one thing I will say, I would love to see Taylor Swift end up in the DCU. By the way, did you know she's best buds with Dwayne? Well, I wouldn't say best buds because she's best buds with Ryan Reynolds, but Dwayne Johnson and her do get along quite well. He's always, have you noticed in his movies, he's always mentioning her.
Really?
Yeah. He's mentioned her, I think it was in Fast, I'm trying to remember which Fast it was. I think it was Fast 8. He mentioned her. And on the very first lip sync battle, he actually sang Shake It Off, or he lip synced Shake It Off. Yeah, so him and Tay have a good relationship. Well, at least I think they do. But then again, it might have to be a case of, for Taylor's soul, it'll have to be Ryan Reynolds versus Dwayne Johnson. Now, for me, my money's on Dwayne every single time.
Yeah.
Just trying to think, is there anything else we can add to that?
Honestly, I want to see them do a Legion of Superheroes film.
I would love that, but the one thing I would also love would be following on from Zack Snyder's Justice League. I would love to see, since Ben Affleck's back, I would love to see the Batman movie that he intended to do with Joe Manganiello's Slade Wilson, where I believe, if I've read this correctly, where Slade Wilson was going to take Batman and Bruce Wayne's lives apart. So basically, Batman, he was going to be found out that Bruce Wayne was Batman. Wayne Enterprises was going to go under. He was basically going to target every single bit of personal info. It would be like the DCU's version of Daredevil Born Again, if you like.
Which Bruce Lee is fortune a lot, though.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I can't wait for that when it comes. It's not just like Netflix's, which was what? Was it a 9-10 episode one, was it? This is going to be like full-blown 18 episodes. Probably about an hour a piece. So can you imagine how much storytelling they'd get in that?
Oh, it should be great. Honestly, Charlie Cox has been amazing as Daredevil, so like I have full trust when it comes to whatever he's doing.
Can we think of anything else? I would like to see an Injustice League versus the Justice League. I would like to see that. Depending on who's going to be in it. But yeah, I'd love to see that. I'm not quite sure who else they're going to put in it because obviously you'd have the heroes they've already got. You'd have the villains. I still don't even know if a Reverse Flash has been cast, if that's the way they're going to do it. So at least we have an idea about where the DCU is going in the future. But at the same time, I still don't see a map that shows us how we're going to get there from the mess we actually literally are at right now. I will say one thing. I haven't seen Black Adam, and it's not took as much as, say, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which should be on Disney Plus soon, by the way. But I look forward to seeing how James Gunn is going to navigate the what would be the word? Not the debauchery. Well, could we call it the debauchery that is the DCU at present, and merge it into what his vision would be? Not quite sure how he's going to do it or how he's going to do it, but I generally hope he does get it there because when you have Kingdom Come, which you and everyone and a lot of people have said, is one of the best comic book storylines there is. At least he's setting the bar high, so at least he can't go any lower than he's already at. What was I going to say? I do wish James Gunn luck. I do generally hope he has luck because the DCU needs to start getting in touch with the MCU. Otherwise, it will just be a failed franchise. The steps are there, or the starting point's there. They just need to get to the finish. And as a DC, not so much a DC fan, but as a Batman and Superman fan, I generally do hope they get there. Anything else you need to add, Fraser?
Honestly, I would like to see Matt Reeves do more stuff with Batman overall, because from what I've heard, his stuff's been amazing.
Oh, by the way, I actually read something about the Batman 2 villain.
Yeah.
Apparently, I'm not quite sure if this is reliable or not, but apparently it's going to be Hush.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's one report I read is not so keen on him. I mean, to be honest with you, if I was going to do a Hush storyline for a Batman movie, it would be an origin movie because you've got history. You literally have the longest piece of history ever with Tommy Elliot and Bruce Wayne. It's not like say a Batman versus a Joker where the Joker didn't really come into anything until Batman was obviously here. Hush was literally at war with Bruce Wayne, literally when they were kids. If anyone doesn't know the tale, and Fraser can correct me at any point if I'm wrong, but I believe Tommy Elliot was after his mum and dad's fortune. So I believe, Fraser, don't quote me on this, but I believe that didn't he cut the brake cord, the brake line on his mum and dad's car? Fraser, this is where you answer. Fraser.
Sorry, I had the.
This meeting is being recorded.
Right. So, if I remember the history correctly, Tommy Elliott's mum and dad were quite rich, and he wanted to get his hands on their fortune. So he cut his mum and dad's car's brake line. So basically the brakes wouldn't work. He tried that. They were in surgery, and they survived strictly because of Thomas Wayne's very great surgical skill.
Basically, his family really loved the Waynes up to the point that he very much is like, you should be more like Bruce, you should be more like Bruce and everything. So it hits the point where when Bruce's parents die and everything, when they do the whole thing that he's around the world living luxurious and all that while he's off training, Tommy becomes very envious of that, and then he basically kills his parents to get his fortune and everything, even using his girlfriend at the time as the means to do it.
Mm.
And then he's basically Bruce Wayne's very first adversary. In the storyline Hush, you see flashbacks from when him and Bruce were kids, and he very much was teaching Bruce about thinking 2-3 moves ahead and everything.
Yeah.
So later on, he ends up trying to become Bruce Wayne, like crafting his face to look more like Bruce and everything, trying to acquire like his fortune, his resources and everything.
If anyone's played Arkham City, Batman Arkham City and Arkham Knight, this is sort of where it goes.
So you see a lot of like how their relationship over time twisted, because Tommy and him, like they spent a lot of time together as kids. And then you see all the wars between him and Bruce when it becomes Batman versus Hush and everything. When Bruce actually, if I recall, falls from a rooftop while he's chasing Selina for the usual night waltz, he has an accident and he's using his finger to Morse code to Alfred about getting Tommy Elliot, because Elliot is one of the best surgeons in Gotham.
Which he is, by reputation. Because in the Arkham series, there was actually a hospital named after him as well.
And then you see... Sorry, go ahead.
I was about to say, so if anything, his reputation preceded his ability.
Exactly. And then, and as Hush, he's just as deadly with his precision when it comes to his knives and everything. He's very much a dark mirror of what Bruce Wayne could have become.
Just to give everyone a bit of light on that. In Arkham City, in one of the side missions, how many people is it he kills Fraser. Is it 5 or 6?
I think he kills 6, and then when you get into his lair, you see each part of the face that he uses to sculpt Bruce's features and everything. If I recall, he has no anesthetic and everything during the surgery too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then obviously in Arkham Knight, where the only thing because he's trying to steal Bruce's millions, the only thing that he can't replicate is the fact that he needs a retina scan, which he doesn't have.
And it becomes interesting in the comics as well, because like the way Bruce and them spin this to bite Elliot to the point that he's literally like under their chain is amazing.
Now you see, don't you think that's the best Batman origin story we could have?
It would work really well because a lot of Bruce's villains are very much like mirrors to himself. Like the duality of Harvey Dent. Hush very much could represent what Bruce could have became if he was corrupted by the high life and wanting to live easy.
Yeah.
Riddler very much drops his riddles because it's of a guilt complex that he has. And that represents a lot of the guilt Bruce Wayne lives with every day. Bane, in a lot of ways, represents Bruce's anger and his rage and be consumed by the dark. So a lot of Batman's films are very much like he's battling his own psyche. He is very much the main patient in Arkham Asylum, if you think about it.
I still haven't listened to Batman. Is it Batman Unbound? But then again, I haven't got a Spotify thing. I would actually like it if that came onto Amazon Music, because that's what I use. Just so I can say, right, I've listened to this and I like it. But the only thing is I can't.
And they beat Joe Rogan for his top spot, apparently. So
yeah, I read that actually. So I'm kind of glad. I generally don't think there is anything else, Fraser. I think we squeeze everything we can out of the DCU. So I think so. So to James Gunn from the Visionary, the Man of 1,000 Voices, who isn't here, and our comic book encyclopedia. After Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is finished, regardless of how that's going to go, good luck. You will need it. So with that being said, I'm trying to think. I don't even know what day it is. What day are we on?
It's Sunday, December 4th.
Yeah. So I'm thinking 2 more weeks. Obviously, we're not going to do it Christmas Day, because Christmas Day we should celebrate it with the families. Although I do long for the day, just for a bit of a Christmas wish. I do long for the day where all of us can have a Christmas meal in the same house.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I do long for it, but I know it's going to take a lot of work to get there. But I know when it happens, the man with the biggest smile on his face will be me. I do genuinely mean that from the bottom of my heart. The only problem is, Fraser, so we talk about Christmassy. What do the kids like as far as Christmas dinner goes?
Mostly the dessert.
I'm going to fall out with you straight away.
It's mostly the desserts. My work actually had like a Christmas dinner thing, so I was able to bring home like a whole bunch of the desserts and like sugar cookies and everything for them and Jesse.
To be honest with you, we don't really have desserts because our producer is probably, I won't say she's one of the best cooks, because somebody will just turn around and say, well, actually mine does it better. But as far as I go, she does the best Christmas dinners. But I'm sure that a collaboration may be on the cards in the future, which I would like. And Nathan will be the entertainment for the kids.
Yeah, the kids will have a blast with Mel. So
yeah. Just before we go, I have actually there is a end of year sale on for PlayStation. I recently bought 2019's Modern Warfare. I absolutely love it. I love the Spec Ops. I haven't downloaded multiplayer because I do not want to be spawn peaked every 5 seconds. But I must admit, I've enjoyed the campaign. I actually thought it was quite small for a Call of Duty title.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the release was as big.
No, I was kind of like, I'm sure, isn't there more? No, there isn't. But I will say one thing. I've started playing Spec Ops, and I've really enjoyed it. I thought it would. I don't know, because I played Modern Warfare 2 when they had the original Spec Ops back in the day, and I was expecting it to be like that, but this is sort of like that, but it's a lot harder. There is a Spec Ops in the newly released Modern Warfare 2 as well. I think there's only 3 missions at this point, but they will be adding more. I've asked the producer for Gold Edition for Christmas phrase. I think season 1's already begun. I think I'm lagging. I'm going to be lagging 4 weeks behind. So the Vault Edition will get me all of the ops on Task Force 141. It will get me half of my battle pass done as well, and I can't remember how many Call of Duty points it will get me as well. But I am due for a very nice action. One thing I will say, and this is actually quite smart from Activision. I found all my double XP tokens, regardless of whether it be double XP or weapon XP, all my ones from Black Ops, Cold War that I haven't used, you can use them on Modern Warfare.
Oh, nice.
So you can imagine the shot. I was like, hold on, why is it saying I got tokens? So I was literally there, and I'm like, oh, these are all my Cold War tokens. I'm like, yeah, I was kind of hoping there'd be a zombie mode on it, but then again, that Modern Warfare is not about zombies. That's what the older stuff's for. So there's 2 more shows left, ladies and gentlemen, just to divert it away from Modern Warfare. I think we might do one next week, then one on the 18th. Then obviously we won't be here for Christmas Day because we need time. We need time apart from each other. But there will be one day where we actually do a Christmas special. So I think I will have a chat with everyone else, but I think after the 18th, we could happily have a couple of weeks off and reunite. I think it's January 3rd, I think it is. Or is it January 8th? No, because New Year's Day is on a Sunday, isn't it? So it would be January 7th when we're back in business. But that's a discussion between all 3 of us. But I'm just letting everybody know what it could be. But for the next 2 weeks, it will be just me and Fraser. And I was actually thinking, Fraser, for the next couple of weeks, we go over what our favourite movies or TV series of this year's been, and then the week after, what have we been playing as far as games this year? I think everyone's going to know my answer to it. Everyone does know my answer to it. But I want to go through some pros and cons of everything I've played as well, because there is a lot I don't like, and there's been a lot that I like. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Hopefully we've not bored you enough that we still have 1 viewer left. I'm going to do Nathan's socials now, if I can remember it off by heart. So bear with me if I've lost track. You can find Nathan on www.deadpixie.ca for his voiceover work. If you need to hire a voice actor, if you need to hire him for his voice work, then www.deadpixie.ca. Which I think that's it, Fraser. I might have missed a few things out, but that's basically the gist of it.
You can find me on Twitter at 5-star wildcard. You can find me as Beautiful Michael on Instagram and on TikTok. You can also find me at the Gokai Studios Facebook page. We have dropped on Webtoons issue 1 of Paranormal Trawlers. We also have another book made by our co-creator, Nick Ellis, called Fossil Ninja Burger Warriors, which is also on Webtoons.
Do I have a question about Twitter, Fraser? Have you had to pay for it yet?
No, not yet.
What exactly is going on with Twitter nowadays? Because last time I heard there was going to be a blue tick, like a blue tick, a gold tick, and something else. And apparently Elon Musk was going to charge everyone $8.
Yeah, for verification, they're apparently just going to charge every money to make. I think people are saying to try and make back the money he basically spent for buying Twitter, but so far none of that's been incorporated or anything. But it's mostly people making fun of Elon Musk on there or fighting about recasting Black Panther. I set off the entire Twitterverse when I put out a thing about Jason David Frank and nobody else should play Tommy. And basically, those people. I'm talking about on the show, and because I ran out of the room in my tweet. So now people are fighting about like reboots and variants, and then somehow it got all political, which I do not understand when you're talking about like fictional characters.
Fictional, yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, Phrase, when you said about recasting it, there was going to be a Tommy Oliver in the next rebooted Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but fortunately, that never came to bear. I do agree, because I think you sort of told me a bit of it, but not all of it. I generally don't think there should be another Tommy Oliver, but then again, any Power Rangers fan who immediately knows a Tommy Oliver will instantly go for Jason David Frank anyway.
Yeah, and some people think if you don't tell the stories of the character, they'll fade, but Tommy's been in multi-Power Ranger series. Tommy's been in the current comics and everything. Jason David Frank's been in all 3 Power Ranger movies, so like that's never going to happen to Tommy, especially new people discovering Power Rangers every single day.
The thing is, they say legends don't die, but the thing is, JDF's legacy will never die anyway, because there'll always be something. There'll always be something where they can say, mention him by name, or just say, "Oh, Tommy's the best Power Ranger in the Power Ranger ever," or something along that lines. But he will not. To be honest with you, I haven't even bothered with Twitter because I know a lot of people left Twitter. I mean, Chrissy Teigen's left Twitter, Jameela Jamil's left Twitter. Instagram is the new place to be, mate, because yes, it is owned by Meta, but at least you don't have to deal with Elon Musk and all the carnage that's going on. Oh, sorry, we called it what did we call it? The social purge.
I have way less drama on Instagram than I do on Twitter.
I know, it's just like everyone's so happy. You'll see the odd bit of sarcasm, but you'll not see anything anything twittery. Or should we call it twattery now?
Yeah, definitely that.
Yeah. So we've had, sorry. You can find me on Final Cut Official on Instagram. I do actually still have a Facebook page, but do I even use that anymore? I don't even know if I do use it. I don't even know if I do use it, but I do know one thing. If anybody wants to check out Final Cut Reviews on Facebook, that will be where a lot of my old movie reviews were. There's a lot on there, and I do mean a lot. There's ranging from Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead to Monsters University, which I don't recommend you watching. But there is a lot on there. There's probably about 250 reviews on there. But then again, it has been a while since I checked it out, so I'm not quite sure. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, from the former movie reviewer, who still doesn't mind getting his tongue a bit acidy at the time, and the comic book encyclopedia, who will probably be salivating at the mere thought of Kingdom Come coming to a movie theatre near you. It is goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Fraser. And is it goodbye from Nathan because he's not here?
Yep.
Oh, goodbye from Nathan then.